By the late 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had reached a level of power and influence that few states in history had ever achieved. From the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Arabia, from the Crimean steppes to the shores of North Africa, the empire's reach was vast, its military formidable, and its administrative structure highly sophisticated. Yet beneath this polished surface, significant challenges were beginning to emerge, challenges that would profoundly shape the trajectory of the empire in the centuries to come. Military strain, economic pressure, and internal instability, once peripheral concerns, became central to the empire's governance and long term viability. The military, long the backbone of Ottoman power, faced unprecedented challenges. Throughout the 16th century, Ottoman armies had achieved remarkable victories, establishing dominance in Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean. Campaigns led by Suleiman the Magnificent and his predecessors showcased strategic brilliance and disciplined troops. Yet by the late 16th century, sustaining such a vast military presence on multiple fronts had begun to exact a toll. Ottoman forces were no longer fighting primarily for expansion, but often for defense or to maintain control over existing territories. And these prolonged campaigns placed enormous demands on resources and logistics. Simultaneous conflicts across several regions exposed the empire's vulnerabilities. In the West, the Ottomans faced the rising power of the Habsburgs in Hungary and Central Europe. Battles stretched from sieges in Transylvania to border skirmishes in Austria, requiring careful coordination and enormous supplies. These campaigns were not only expensive, but increasingly difficult to sustain over long periods, as the empire's logistical network was stretched thin. Meanwhile, in the East, the Safavid Empire in Persia was regaining strength under capable leadership, presenting a serious challenge along the eastern frontier. Ottoman armies had to defend long borders, manage internal garrisons, and maintain control over distant provinces simultaneously, a task that tested even the most seasoned military administrators. Naval campaigns, once a source of Ottoman pride, also revealed growing difficulties. The Mediterranean remained a contested space, and the empire faced coalitions of European powers determined to check Ottoman expansion. Naval defeats, such as the catastrophic loss at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, highlighted both strategic miscalculations and the limits of Ottoman naval resources. While fleets were rebuilt and maritime power retained to some degree, these engagements demonstrated that the empire's military supremacy was no longer uncontested, and the psychological impact of defeat reverberated through both leadership circles and the broader population. Alongside military strain, economic pressures compounded the empire's challenges. The 16th century had brought tremendous wealth to the Ottoman treasury through conquest, trade, and taxation. Yet by the late 16th century, this economic stability began to erode. Inflation, partially fueled by the influx of silver from the New World into European markets, disrupted the monetary system. The value of coins fluctuated, creating uncertainty in trade and taxation. Meanwhile, the administrative apparatus responsible for collecting revenues and managing expenditures struggled to maintain efficiency across a vast and diverse empire. Provincial governors often exploited local populations, while bureaucratic inefficiencies slowed the flow of funds to the central treasury. The combination of rising costs from prolonged military campaigns and declining fiscal stability placed immense strain on the state budget. Maintaining the standing army, paying the janissaries, and funding naval expeditions consumed an increasingly larger portion of imperial revenue. The Janissary Corps, originally established as an elite military unit, had grown into a politically influential group with vested interests in court decisions. Their salaries and privileges became a significant financial burden, and their interference in both succession politics and administrative affairs complicated governance further. The empire's economic challenges were therefore not merely financial, but deeply intertwined with its military and political structures. Internal instability emerged as a natural consequence of these pressures. Across Anatolia and other provinces, widespread revolts challenged Ottoman authority. These uprisings, often referred to as the Salali revolts, were led by a diverse coalition of disaffected soldiers, peasants, and former provincial officials. Economic hardship, abuses by local governors, and the weakening of central control fueled these rebellions. Trade routes were disrupted, agricultural production declined, and provincial administration became increasingly chaotic. In some regions, rebels gained temporary control, underscoring the fragility of Ottoman power far from the capital. Succession politics added another layer of instability. While earlier periods had seen brutal practices such as fratricide to secure the throne, the late 16th and early 17th centuries witnessed new methods of managing succession, such as confining potential rivals to palace quarters. These practices were intended to maintain continuity and reduce violent conflict within the dynasty, but they also concentrated power among palace elites and increased the influence of advisors and court factions. The combination of weakened sultanic authority, factional politics, and an overextended military created an environment in which governance became reactive rather than proactive. The social fabric of the empire also felt the effects of military, economic, and administrative pressures. Urban populations faced rising taxes and economic uncertainty, while rural communities struggled under both local corruption and the broader consequences of military campaigns. The demands placed on society contributed to unrest, and in some cases, fueled the very revolts that challenged Ottoman authority. Meanwhile, the central government increasingly relied on intermediaries, grand viziers, provincial governors, and palace officials to enforce policies, often with mixed results. Despite these challenges, the Ottoman Empire remained a major power. Its military, while strained, could still project force. Its economy, while under pressure, remained diverse and productive. And its administrative systems, while imperfect, continued to coordinate a vast and complex empire. Yet the combination of external threats, financial instability, and internal revolts marked a turning point. The empire's expansionist momentum had slowed, and structural weaknesses became more visible to both contemporaries and later historians. The late 16th and early 17th centuries, therefore, represent a period of transition for the Ottoman state. Military strain on multiple fronts, economic pressures stemming from inflation and fiscal mismanagement, and internal instability through revolts and factional politics collectively exposed the vulnerabilities inherent in even the most powerful empires. The empire's capacity to adapt to these pressures was tested repeatedly, and while Ottoman institutions demonstrated resilience, the era set the stage for a slower, more protracted decline in centralized authority and cohesion. These developments also had long-term consequences for Ottoman military strategy and administrative reform. Leaders recognized the need to balance the costs of warfare with the demands of governance, to manage internal unrest, and to maintain economic stability. Subsequent sultans and grand viziers implemented reforms, reorganized provincial administration, and attempted to restrain the growing influence of the Janissaries. These efforts reflected a broader understanding that the empire's strength depended not only on military victories, but also on effective governance, economic stability, and social cohesion. The challenges of this period also reshaped the perception of Ottoman power among both allies and rivals. European states, once wary of Ottoman dominance, observed the empire's difficulties and adapted their strategies accordingly. Rival powers saw opportunities to resist Ottoman influence, negotiate favorable treaties, and challenge imperial authority in contested regions. Similarly, populations within the empire became more assertive, leveraging moments of weakness to negotiate rights, privileges, and autonomy. The empire's external and internal environments were increasingly intertwined, with instability in one arena influencing dynamics in the other. In conclusion, the late 16th century and early 17th century were defining years for the Ottoman Empire. Military strain on multiple fronts, compounded by economic pressures and internal revolts, revealed structural vulnerabilities and tested the resilience of the state. While the empire remained a formidable power, these combined challenges exposed weaknesses that would influence Ottoman governance and stability for generations. Understanding this period is crucial to comprehending the long-term evolution of the empire, its adaptive strategies, and the complex interplay between military, economic, and political forces that shaped one of history's most enduring empires.